Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our discussion today on how to navigate the food service supply chain today. The session is being recorded, so if you have, the session is being recorded, so you're going to get that in your email afterwards, and you can also get it from the Buyers Edge Platform website on our webinar page, where there's lots of other great food service content. And then if you have any questions today, use the GoToWebinar window, send us those questions. We'd love to hear them and we'll grab them at the end. So today we've got a group of food service professionals to share their angles of the supply chain puzzle in hopes that you leave today with a clear understanding of what is going on in the supply chain and use this insight to better navigate your world. So joining us in this industry conversation, we have Karen Stewart. She is a non-commercial and business development leader for Cargill Food Service. She's worked in the industry for 30 years in various retail and food service roles. We've got Bob McGinnis, business logistics director at Essity Professional Hygiene. Been with them for 6 years. Prior to that, his 5 years of supply chain management with a large third-party logistic provider. We've got John Reisigle, the president of Cheney Brothers Food Distributor, with 37 years in the food service distribution industry. His background includes
28 years.
What was that?
28 years, not 37. I'm not that old.
Makes a difference. Okay. Time at US Foods, time at Cheney, which is the 7th largest food distributor in the nation. Today, John is the president of Cheney in Riviera Beach, which is in Florida. We've got John Cole, the CEO of Atlas Wholesale Foods Company. John is the CEO and owner of this 72-year-old third-generation food service distributor based in Detroit, Michigan. He was recently featured in 40 Under 40 by Crain's Detroit Business Magazine, which is very cool. Congrats there. And then leading these brilliant minds in our topic today is Brant Squires of the Buyers Edge Platform. So Brant, I will turn things over to you to get the conversation started.
That's awesome. So thanks again to the panelists and everyone for joining. I'm really excited for this conversation with all of you today. I think all of you on the panel and those listening know that the supply chain is suffering. I think there's a lot of disruption coming across the board. So what we're going to discuss here today is not just unique to food service. So it's our hope that we can share insight with all of you on what's going on, what the supplier is going through, what the distributor is going through. Let's understand all folks from all sides of the table here, so the operator, the audience here can best navigate through these times. So let's jump into it. I think for those of you who have joined, you've got some really smart and talented people here on the panelists. You've got some fun and cool people too. So take notes and learn, because we've really got some bright minds joining us today. So let's set the stage. I'd like to kick things off just really understanding the background of what sparked this whole supply chain impact and how that's really led it to today. So I'm gonna start with John Cole from Atlas, but in March of last year, it really began a lot of series of abrupt order cancellations, shutdowns, a lot of that stuff. And I don't want to rehash the past, but how has that impacted you to today? So what's your current view on the supply chain, and how is that impacting your customer?
Yeah, even though it was just a year ago, it seems like a decade, but it all comes down to demand, and demand got so abruptly shut off from one huge segment of where all food goes in the food service realm. We canceled all of our POs. We were, the whole industry was looking for what to do with all this excess product that we had that there was no users for, no restaurants, no casinos, no sporting venues. So a lot of distributors took to selling it different ways. And trying whatever they could to, get rid of the inventory that they have and right size where their inventory is. Now, not to dwell too much in the past, because right now I think is the other great time of disruption in the industry, and it's stems back to the same thing. In my opinion, it's demand is the first thing, is unstable demand. It just trickles all the way through the supply chain, and then trucking and labor are the next few items that are really, our restaurant operators are seeing it from a labor standpoint. So are the manufacturers from a labor standpoint, and it is all connected very fluidly. So we're seeing some disruptions and some fill rates that we've never seen and we're just not used to.
Yeah, we're going to spend some time on labor later. John, talk about that John Reisicle, talk about those disruptions and your ability to bring in product, slot it, and get it delivered. Are you tired yet, trying to keep up with all that?
Absolutely, it's been nonstop, and Florida's been booming for many months. Our state opened at 100% back in September, so we've been booming like crazy. But as other states are opening, there's so much pent-up demand because so many people weren't going out to eat, they weren't going out to bars. They're cooking at home, and for those of us who like to dine out, we know that you get tired of cooking at home. So between the states reopening and people having some stimulus money in their pockets, there's a lot of disposable income for people to go out and eat out and dine out and that. And these states are opening up to a bang. And to John Cole's point earlier, when COVID hit, everybody had to ramp down their operations because there was no demand, right? The restaurants weren't purchasing food. So distributors had to ramp down. Manufacturers had to ramp down. They would close parts of their production lines, scale back their production hours. Unfortunately, they had to lay off people. And, it takes time to ramp up. And I don't think anybody expected, whether you're a manufacturer or a distributor, I don't think anybody expected it to ramp up as quickly and as drastically as it has. So that's put a huge strain on the supply chain, and all of us, whether we're manufacturers, distributors, or restaurateurs, we're all struggling to get enough labor in our facilities quick enough to handle the increase in demand. And that's why there's a big crunch on the supply chain right now.
Yeah, our industry was really ground zero that got hit first. Wouldn't you agree? The restaurants stopped closing first. And so now, are we the first ones coming out of it? Or are we the first ones feeling the pain now on the way out? John Reisicle?
I think there's every industry is. I mean, you look at autos. I mean, there's in Detroit, that's where I'm at. There's parking lots full of them because we can't get enough chips to complete the assembly process. I mean, every industry is going through some sort of craziness right now that they've never experienced. We feel it firsthand because we have perishable items and the supply chain is relatively quick on these things. But every industry, in my opinion, is feeling some effect of the supply chain shortages.
Yeah, we're going to continue to see it. Bob, why don't you hop in here? So you might want to just teach the audience too about your product line, roughly what you offer. But a lot of the products that you had were in high demand, from first responders to consumers. It was, I think, the 5 times I drove to the grocery, all 4 times I couldn't get hand sanitizer or toilet paper or a certain point in the thick of COVID. And I didn't get mad at your brand. I was patient and I was dealing with supply chain. So I wonder if you could comment on, if you were in such high demand, are you still in high demand? I think that's a fair question. But you were in high demand, and my understanding is you probably pivoted to retail really quick away from food service. So did you learn anything in that when you pivot, as you pivot back to food service in some capacity, that you're going to apply back to that pivot? So I'm sure you learned some pain. So to feel less pain as you pivot back to food service, is there anything cool you guys are doing?
Yeah, so Essity, it produces the Torque brand. It's a lot of the items that we make are in line with towels and bath tissue and napkins and wipers, and so it's definitely very important items for the market when it comes to health and hygiene, which coming out of, as we're working to come out of this COVID pandemic, is, I think, front of mind for many people in the market. From a product availability piece, you're right. I mean, there was definitely a spike in demand last year. I guess I would attribute much of that to panic buying and the hoarding of products, particularly bath tissue and hand towels and sanitizers. I think we've all seen the stores, as you were talking about, Brant, where you walk in and you see either the empty shelves or even months later, seeing notes on the shelves saying limit 1 or 2 items per customer. So that's obviously tricks to help stretch out the supply of products that everybody wants. Essity does a little bit of retail business as well, but in addition to food service, a large portion of our volume is the JanSan type customers. So much like any manufacturer out there, and probably even any distributor as well, it's important to be able to be, somewhat flexible and agile as far as meeting the needs of the market. Going forward, at least, from Essity's perspective, from what I'm seeing, I'm not expecting the widespread or continued shortages that I think we saw early last year as a result of that panic buying. I think one of the keys to that, and I think this is easier said than done, but it's really, accurate forecasts, from the market. I think forecasts, help drive production planning, and to have those accurate forecasts really helps ensure that we've got the right amount of product out there to meet our customers' needs. I think one side comment outside of production capabilities as well, and I can't remember which John it was that mentioned this, but it talked about transportation as well, and that's one of those areas that, carrier capacity remains tight, and I think all of the industry publications show that we can expect carrier capacity to be tight for the rest of 2021. So I think that's another challenge I think that we're all gonna have to face here going forward.
Yep. Yeah, Karen, I'll bring you in. As you ramp up all your production and stuff like that, how do you determine where that goes first? I feel like you've got a lot of distributors that want your product, and unfortunately you can't get them all to them on time. So how do you choose and prioritize?
That's a great question, and one that we grapple with on a daily basis. Because of the situation that we've all talked about with labor and inability to forecast demand exactly, we just have to run our plants as efficiently as we can. And the way to do that is to run the larger volume items and try to make long, full production runs of those items that can please the most people, right? So there may be some items in our makeup that are small batch that we just can't run now. And our message to our customers is have some backups, right? Be a little bit flexible. If you're used to using a 4-ounce patty on your burger, have a couple of other options that might work just in case we can't get you what you need. So that efficiency is super important, but on the logistics and transportation piece, it's there too on the docks. When we've got trucks backing up to load up, we want them to load a whole truck and get it on the road and get it moving to the people that need it. And unfortunately, the smaller LTL kind of stuff gets, put on the back burner, or we highly encourage people to buy through companies like DOT that can redistribute for all of us. So, those are things that are super important. The labor piece, I can't underscore how much that concerns us all. I've seen some really alarming statistics on what sort of the break-even wage rate is to get people to come back to work. And if you factor in the income tax benefits for a family of 4, it gets a lot worse. So that's top of mind for all of us, for sure.
I think it's a good time to transition to labor, and thank you for that answer, Karen. I heard Thursday, yeah, Thursdays around 2 o'clock. I heard that's when the most people are looking for jobs. So if there's anyone out here in the audience that's looking, feel free to get out there and help us solve this problem. So again, all jokes aside, labor is a critical piece of the supply chain disruption. And I hear from all partners from all sides, manufacturers, distributors, operators a lot lately, actually. They're just struggling to find the labor, whether it's finding the employees or really setting up, social distancing work zones, safe things. There's all sorts of challenges to it. So I think I'd like to start with the distributor part on the labor. So John Cole, can you give me just how's it going out there? I imagine the labor issues are impacting your operation, and how are you solving it? And what's the trickle effect been, due to the labor constraints?
Yeah, so we've been fortunate at our company. We hadn't really had to lay anybody off, and we've added staff over the course of the last year. But we're seeing the biggest labor problem and issue within our operators as we in Michigan start to reopen. We're still at 50%, and we're expected to be going more. But one of the operators of a chain in Detroit, 25 stores, told me yesterday. He said, "John, even if we could open at 100%, I couldn't do it. I just don't have the staff to be able to do it, and I can't hire." And it's just that thread is just woven throughout all of our customer base. I mean, it's the thing we hear and I hear the most. And I think it's the same thing on the manufacturing side. From what we hear is the biggest reason for some of our shortages. It's just it's really difficult to find labor. And we were talking to one of my chicken manufacturers yesterday, and he said he's looking out his window and there's 28 trucks lined up to be processed. And he goes, the most he's ever seen is 3 trucks, in line to be, to process. He goes, it's just we don't know who's going to show up. We can't fully staff our lines, and it's just difficult to predict that. So, Karen, you alluded to some of the numbers you've seen. I've seen some too, and there's a rebalancing, I think, that's happening with labor, and it's difficult and painful for us to realize where the new levels need to be to get people to come to work, to attract new people to our industry, to figure out ways to operate differently, and maybe take out labor from our operations.
And John Reisicle, you've got many Cheney branches in the southern part of the country. So are you seeing labor issues across the board, or is one of your branches doing okay and the other ones are hurting?
It's across the board. It's from North Carolina to Florida. It's labor challenges everywhere. Florida is probably highlighted because, we've been in business for 96 years and we're experiencing week after week, last several months, record sales weeks and record sales days. So we're having some of the busiest volume days we've ever had. So you combine that with probably about a 15% lack of labor, and it's hitting us in 2 important areas. And John Cole will probably corroborate this because all the counterparts I speak with across the country are in the same areas, and that's warehouse workers and truck drivers. Those are the 2 critical points where we're facing the labor crunch and labor shortage. And people have asked me, hey, have you thought of, hey, did you try? And I'm like, yes, we thought of it. We tried it. We're doing it. We're pulling every lever we can pull, getting very, very creative to get people in our door, people that want to come to work. But I think Karen alluded to a little earlier, people are getting paid a healthy sum to sit home and not participate in the workforce right now. So I think we've got a couple rocky months ahead of us finding available labor.
Yeah. If anyone's going to come up with something creative, I think it's going to be you, John Reisicle. But a lot of this stuff is solved through brute force as well. I talked to a sales rep actually at Cheney Brothers earlier this week, and he was averaging about 1,200 miles a month on his car, just visiting customers. In April, he did over 2,700 miles. So, your employees are out there. In addition, what is that extra mileage? Is it service? Is it, what do you think it is?
It's just service to our customers and being there for them and reacting to their needs. It's just trying to touch everybody and make sure they're serviced right.
Yep. Yeah. Karen, did you want to chirp in a little bit? Because I know Reisicle brought you up on any of the labor issues.
The other thing I'll add, and I'm sure it's probably a common theme across the industry, we are trying to get creative. Not only with adjusting wage rates, but signing bonuses. Come to work, stay 30 days, get a big cash bonus. Refer a friend, they stay for 30 days, get another big cash bonus. There's a lot of that stuff going on. And, some days you think, wow, how could they not want to come apply? And it continues to surprise us that there's just not a demand right now for jobs. And so, I think that rebalancing that we talked about, I hope it's going to have to happen. I hope it happens. And it's at the end of the payouts in September. I hope it happens quickly.
And both Johns talked about, truck drivers, the selectors, I think you said, those are the shortages. In your world, Bob and Karen, are the shortages the actual factory workers themselves, or the truck drivers themselves too?
Yeah, I think, from what I'm seeing, it's shortages on the trucking side. From a factory and a production piece, at least at Essity, I think we're fine at a staffing level right now. Now, that being said, we're looking ahead and we're watching as the market continues to open throughout the rest of this year. And so trying to plan ahead and staff accordingly, to help with that increased demand that we expect is something that we're currently working through. But if it comes down to warehouse or trucking, I think right now we're seeing the biggest pinch on the trucking side.
I was reading somewhere about Driscoll Strawberry advised the farmers not to plant as much at one point, and now fast forward to today, that was unfortunately not a good piece of advice. Now we're behind on strawberry production. Karen, was there anything that you held off on and advised, and looking back, you wish you would have slowed it down a little bit?
No, I can't really say that that's the case. You know, there was definitely a swing. You know, Cargill, thankfully, is a very diversified company. Has always had a foot in retail and a foot in food service and B2B ingredient sales. So we've always enjoyed that diversity. You know, we definitely swung more to retail in the beginning of COVID and stayed there for a while. Now that we see that coming back, you know, we're able to kind of rebalance what we're making. But I don't know of anything in particular where we, you know, made too much of something. Or I mean, obviously we had a lot of inventories last March that didn't go anywhere, and a lot of it went to food banks and places like that because we just didn't have demand for it. But once we kind of moved through that and cleaned that stuff out, we, you know, we've just tried to stay very close to the demand, and like any good relationship, communications foundation, right? And so just trying to forecast what our customers would need in each of those different segments to stay as close to it as we could.
Yeah. John Cole, I mean, listen, the restaurants in the audience, they're going through a lot of the labor shortages as well. Do you find that since your customer's going through it and you're going through it, that at least there's some common pain, or that you both can relate?
You know, different customers have different levels of understanding, and Karen, you mentioned it before, is, you know, being flexible and being able to accept other items because, you know, there's just things that aren't being manufactured right now, and it's, you know, it's difficult to, you know, to predict. It's difficult to, you know, to know what you're going to have or what you're going to have to switch out to. So yeah, yes, there is some commonality, but there's still that underlying tone of frustration. You know, they're frustrated because they don't have the help and they're doing things that they haven't done before, and, you know, they may be the owner of the restaurant and they're, you know, placing the order when they haven't done that in the past regularly, and they're also running to, you know, the grocery store to help cover a short, and they're running in all sorts of different directions, as are we, trying to, you know, make sure the supply chain and our inventory stays filled enough to support our customer base.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
So-
just trying to say that John articulated that perfectly. It's kind of the same thing that we're up against. There's different levels of understanding, and some of them, and rightfully so, some of the operators are like, listen, your problems can't become my problems. I want my stuff and I want it when I want it, right? But on the flip side, their challenge with consumers coming in their restaurants and longer times get meals out to the table, less wait staff, and their customers are telling the restaurant owners, hey, your problems can't become my problems. I want to come in, enjoy my meal, and get it when I want it. So, you know, it all kind of trickles downhill. You know, the only thing I would just add, and you know, and John touched on it, is from the restaurant operator side, you know, just know that none of us in manufacturing or distribution forgot to do what we do overnight, that there's a dedicated team of people that are literally working around the clock to service all of our customers and to get products where they need to be. And just be a little flexible in your delivery times, be a little flexible on your product offering. John Cole just mentioned, and Karen touched on it, you might not be able to get your 5-ounce burger, be willing to get a 4-ounce or a 6-ounce burger. Maybe keep it.
I say always go with the bigger burger, John. Always.
It's perfect. I like it. It'll be a good consumer too. So, you know, and maybe keep an extra day or two of safety stock on hand, and, you know, for those outs. We're experiencing, as a distributor, about an 86% fill rate from our manufacturer partners. That's 10 full points below where we historically run at. So, you know, the inbound supply chain is a challenge for us right now. That's the reason leading to out of stocks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
John,
no,
I pulled some numbers on Dot Foods. They were, for the Gold Bond members in January, 83.8% fill rate, and then February was 80% fill rate. You know, for every 1,000 cases, 200 cases just don't even show up on our dock. And the reason, you know, they have these recent codes, right? It's multiple supplier shortage, 32% of them, supplier allocation, unusual demand. You know, it's just, you know, it's tough to recover from that. And how do you? You get more stock, and the customer gets more safety stock, and in turn, that affects the manufacturer's forecasting model, because everyone's hoarding onto their product, especially their key items, and there's not an accurate level of demand that everyone can forecast.
Right, and I would agree with John with what John said regards to additional safety stock, and maybe even increase lead times a little bit. Obviously, nobody wants to necessarily do that, but if that helps protect service levels, add in an extra day or two of lead time might be beneficial.
What I find interesting is the operator should, have a what we call it, safety, get some backup SKUs. But John Reisicle, my understanding is you're buying everything you possibly can. You can't buy backup SKUs yourself. So the operators need to do backup, but you can't buy backup SKUs.
Oh yeah, we have a substitute item for everything that we need. But if our shipment of, for example, Heinz ketchup gets delayed by a day or two, and we run tight on Heinz ketchup, and that operator wants Heinz ketchup on the table, there is no substitute for Heinz ketchup. I've got other ketchups, but I might not have Heinz. So, if you keep an extra few days of Heinz ketchup in your restaurant, and we're out for a day or two, they're covered.
John Cole, I'm curious, what have you done on your truck routes and things like that? Have you had to move around when customers get deliveries due to shortage of truck drivers, or trying to streamline your routes any better?
Yeah, it's more probably based on the demand. As customers come back at different levels, their order sizes vary. And John, you've seen it because Florida's been open more. It's been more robust demand you've seen out there. We're starting, since the last couple of months, really starting to see the boom in restaurants, and the order sizes go up, and sales, hitting some pre-pandemic levels again at different locations. So it's always adjusting to that. That's a constant ebb and flow of kind of balancing routes and times with everyone. But we have had to, think through, in an environment where there's going to be variability, and that you're going to get 80% of what you ordered. How do you provide a good customer experience? We're trying to actively beef up our customer service department and put more resources in that. Hire dedicated, we call them hotshot drivers, to take items and even to help our customers shop when a truck comes in and some key items are off of it. We have to find it locally or find it somewhere. Otherwise, the customer is going to have to, right? So, trying to think through strategies and how do we, in an environment of uncertainty, create some sort of level of enhanced customer service for our customers.
Yeah. I saw both Cheney and Cole offer a lot of order online and will car pickup, things like that in the thick of COVID. How is that business doing? Is will call still increasing for you, or is it decreasing? I don't care who takes it from the distribution side.
No, it's actually dropped off since the height of COVID.
Yeah, same here. It was incredibly intense for the first 2.5 months of COVID through, probably through the beginning of June, and then it just, it tanked, literally in a matter of a couple of weeks. But even for a while, it was a great way to, support our staff and get rid of our excess inventory, and provide some value to folks that wanted wholesale food at good prices.
Yeah. So are you taking on new customers, John Cole? Are you really focused on servicing, the customers you have now?
Yeah, it's the whole prospecting this year has been so very skewed, right? On what customers you want to go after, who you want to build relationships with, and who's going to emerge out of this, and it's very fluid as different stimulus gets passed, and likelihoods of restaurants still staying in business in a year change with some of those equations. But yeah, we're always looking for new customers, but we're looking for the right customers, and mention advice, things to your customers, to consumers and operators to think through is, this is really one of those moments where partnerships matter, and you really want to be a customer that works with as a partner with your distributor, right? Empathy is the height and most important thing to have in this business, and to have it both ways, to make sure we work together and come up with solutions for the customer, because we're going to need some give and take. But this is the time to enhance that partnership and come together to figure out how to protect the key items for your restaurant, and how to move forward for things you're going to have to sub, and come up with strategies.
Well, let's jump into some future-based questions. Let's take a little future trip. So 2020 has shown us that really no one can predict the future, but let's talk a little bit about what the future could look like. John Reiskell, when do you see things going back to some sort of normalcy as it relates to supply chain?
Wow, that's not an easy question, Brant. You know, I've been saying in a month or so, I've been saying that for about 4 months. So I'm kind of done making predictions. I think we're going to have a tough road ahead of us for another several months. I think until a lot of the extended unemployment benefits ended in September, it could take that long before the labor crunch opens up a little bit and we're able to get fully staffed. You know, I'd turn it over to Bob and Karen from the supply chain side and the manufacturer side, you know, when they expecting to see some normalization. But, you know, the other thing I'll just add to that is the shortage of drivers nationwide. That is not going to end anytime soon. One stat I saw is that for every 17 loads needed to get transported to Florida, there's only one driver available for those 17 loads. So there is a really, really big delta in what is needed in transportation versus what is available right now. So that part of the supply chain, it's going to be months, if not years, before that's corrected.
Bob, do you care to comment? Is there any region or parts of the country that you see being worse than others? Because we have operators all over the country joining, and how should they react if they're in one of those hot zones?
Yeah, you know, I think I don't see a lot of variance between different regions. It seems like everybody's being impacted roughly the same. I just haven't seen one region impacted worse than the next. I definitely echo everything John just said from a transportation side, though, and from a carrier side, driver shortage side. That's going to take a while to sort out, and that just, I think I heard it mentioned a couple different times, you know, throughout this call, you know, relationship business, you know, relationships are important. And I think that's equally important when it comes to relationships with carriers, shipping, receiving, you know, those types of opportunities. It really takes a little bit of give and take from everybody to try to maximize and utilize any available driver that's out there. Because to John's point, if there's 17, you know, loads for every one driver, I mean, that driver has the pick of the litter as far as, you know, which shipment they want. And so I think we all want to be conscientious of that and make sure that one driver is choosing, you know, our shipment.
Karen, I'd be interested in some of your feedback as well.
Well, I guess the only thing I could add that my crystal ball is not any more clear than John's or Bob's, but I'm glad that food service is coming back. We've been waiting for this day for a year, so thank God, right? But I'm just so glad it's not happening everywhere at the same time, because we'd really be in trouble. So, you know, for us, it's those two dynamics. When labor comes back, and that relies, I guess, on vaccinations and how people feel about returning to work and the other incentives they have not to work, and balancing that with what does demand really look like when the whole country opens and the dust settles. And, you know, people used to hoard toilet paper, now they're hoarding soybean oil, you know, so there's different things to hoard these days. And when we can get a good read on what demand really looks like and what labor looks like, then I think we'll know when normal happens again, but who knows?
Yeah. John Cole, I always call you with really weird technology ideas. So world shut down, we all joined Zooms, we all were forced in some cases to buy online because we couldn't meet, you know, with our favorite rep. In the future, do you see more digital and stuff and interactions, more online purchasing, and maybe self-driving trucks coming soon? Like, what is the digital to come out of this that you
without a doubt. I mean, the whole industry you know, advanced 10 years in this last year digitally. You know, people want to order online, both from a consumer standpoint and from an operator standpoint. And the rise of Uber Eats and DoorDash, some of these aren't trends that are going away. People, that never ordered on these platforms are ordering on them regularly, and the habits are tough to change. And a year is a really long time to develop these habits, and they're now deeply entrenched within, our society, right? It's not going away. The ease of access and instant gratification from ordering is there. So, from distribution standpoint, how do we become and get our data in a more accessible way from different platforms to be able to use it? So, getting an accessible database that can be transferred from different systems that different operators are using easily. But from a operator standpoint, is how do we interact with digital menus and social media and the apps that have offered delivery to really enhance that experience for our customers and do what they're ultimately the ones that choose where they spend their dollar and what matters. So if they're continuing to spend through these apps, that's where our focus has got to be.
That's interesting. John Reisicle, let's spitball a little bit. Most times in my life, whether personally or business, if I go through some episode of a big stress test, I typically come out stronger most of the time. So, John, you've been put through a really big stress test, whether it's the morale of your employees, the morale of your customers, the supply chain, all the brass tacks we talked about today. Due to this stress test, what good's going to come out of this? How is Cheney going to be better and stronger from this?
Yeah, good question, Brandon. And I agree with you. We will be better coming out of this. We've been forced to do more with less. We've been forced to get more creative, to think outside the box, to put different programs and systems in place. So it's stressed everybody in the organization, and it's stressed them to come up with ways to be more efficient, to be better service oriented, to do more with less resources. And once we get fully staffed and everything kind of gels and comes together the way we want it to be, we're going to be firing on all cylinders.
That's cool. Well, Jillian, listen to all the panelists. Thank you all so much. I think this was profound. This was awesome. I found it very helpful, and I learned some things on how to navigate and really how to approach tomorrow and next month. So I suspect we may have some questions out there, Jillian. I didn't know if we did. We'd love to get to them.
We sure do. We have some great questions. So the first one is, due to the shortage of drivers that we talked a lot about, are you seeing a big rise in freight rates?
I'll start off with that, and John laughs, so I think he'll have something to add. Yeah, we've seen just in the last several months a 30% increase in freight costs inbound to us, and they're expecting another big increase in the coming months. And John, or maybe Bob mentioned it earlier, that carriers they're picking up. They have the pick of the litter right now. So 17 available loads for every truck driver. So he's going to go take the load that's the easiest for him to navigate and that's paying the highest rate. So if people want their loads to get picked up from the manufacturer, they're going to have to raise what they pay to get that product picked up and taken to its destination. So the increases are there. They're going to keep coming. Fuel costs continue to rise, which is another big component of freight.
Awesome, thank you. Did anyone else want to add into that? There was a lot of faces that lit up.
That was a great answer, John. I mean, you got it. Yeah, 30. I was looking at like 40%. I mean, it's profound, right? One lane that was $4,500 quoted to me. That's what we normally pay on. I got a quote today, and they wanted $8,000 for it. Regular. I mean, it's you almost think like there's what, but it's the market, right? It's just it's a different market and a different world, and if you need to get it there within a certain time frame, you got to pay for it.
Yeah. Thank you for that. The next question we had is probably for Karen and Bob. Are there issues with the raw materials, and do you have supply to produce the products to meet the increased demand?
I think from my end, we are not seeing any shortages on raw materials. There might have been a little bit of a hiccup, in the middle of last year, early last year, because keep in mind, some of the raw materials that we use, they come from places like offices and schools. It's a waste paper type of product, and with the pandemic, offices were shut down, schools were transitioned to remote. So for a little bit there, I think we had to source some products from some different areas, but we're not seeing that nearly as much today as we were then. And so from our perspective, we're not having very many challenges on the sourcing side. I don't know if Karen has anything different.
Yeah, no, I would echo that. We're highly vertically integrated in most of our businesses. The one area that we have had some issues is just with packaging. There's a lot of plastics are being diverted to PPE and things like that. And so, the little nozzle that goes on the top of an aerosol can, or the cap that goes on top of your pan spray, things like that, there's shortages on. And so you might get something that has a different color cap than you're used to once, or a complete shortage of the product because you can't get the packaging. But in terms of the food itself, I think we're good.
Good to know on the food side. Yeah, there has been a lot of other topics. So
I would say one thing to add to that is plastics has been an issue. And John, I don't know if you've seen it on your side, but plastic containers has been an issue. Our dairy, I probably had 4 different truckloads cancel on me for next week not because they don't have the product or the yogurt or the sour cream. It's because they don't have the plastic containers to put them in. And they don't know when they're getting their shipment until the day before. They only got half of what they expected. So you're planning to get a truck. They're saying, we just can't produce it for you. And those are the ones that are just, until that balances itself. And that, they're saying stems from Texas. Some of the major plastic producing companies are in Texas, and we just haven't seen a recovery of that yet. John, are you seeing that, Cheney Brothers?
Absolutely, the exact same thing. We had a dressing manufacturer that had all the dressing needed, but they didn't have the plastic caps to put on top of the gallon containers, so they couldn't ship the dressing.
So I guess pallets are the last thing, right? That just in the last week or two, pallets have become an issue too, but being able to get the right kind of pallets. So, it's kind of the backbone of the industry if you think about it.
Are you on a CHEP pallet system or regular wood pallets?
All of the above.
Yeah, definitely coming from every single angle that's playing into this topic. So kind of because of that, this next question is, what is, for John and John, what is your best advice for an operator right now and how to work with their distributor? Knowing that you have pains and they have pains, what would you like to tell them on how they can best work with their distributors?
Collaboration, talking through the problems and making sure that, they're real problems. If you're a chicken wing establishment right now in this country, it's crazy. The price is not even a question. It's just, can you even get the product? And it's coming up with solutions for how to take the price of like a chicken wing and make it still something you can serve on a plate, then make money off of it, maybe by balancing it out with boneless wings or but collaboration and working through it, and just open lines of communication. And that's something I know we are trying to actively get better at, to immediately start to notify and start the conversations with customers from the moment we get the confirmation back that something might not be on a truck. But we have to change our practices to help just communicate the reality of what's going on.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, as Brant said earlier, we've got operators on this call from all over the country. So wherever you are and what distributor you're using, it's not just your distributor that's having these challenges. Everything that John Cole is mentioning, we're experiencing, and vice versa. John's in Detroit, I'm in Florida. So it's, I talked to a lot of my counterparts throughout the country, and we're all up against the same thing. Not enough labor, not enough truck drivers, inbound fill rates that are poor. So we're all working hard to get past those issues.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that. The last question that came through is to kind of go back to that future trip and a future that I hope we don't hit, but what kind of process and procedures are you implementing if by chance we do have another global disaster or another spike that brings us far back? Are there things that you're starting to plan? That's for anybody. If anybody has gotten that far out of the weeds to think.
Jillian, I'll say on the manufacturing side, if you think about the silver linings, if there are such a thing from COVID, we've learned how to pivot and be agile and how to, rise to the occasion. And we've learned how to socially distance people in a plant and build plexiglass cages around them and do one-way traffic flows and do the things that are important to keep people's health and wellness front and center. And I think that those are things that we'll probably never go backwards on. So I think that maybe it's not necessarily planning for the next pandemic, but being more prepared to react when it does happen, because we've learned so much from this one.
For sure. Thank you for that. It's a good point. That is actually all of the questions that came through, but I would invite all of you, if there's sort of closing remarks, we do have 45 operators on here. If there's anything that you think beyond what we've already covered is helpful for them to sort of navigate the world with you, or any closing thoughts you want to add in, I welcome those.
No, I would add to the operators, hey, we appreciate what the operators have been doing by keeping the restaurants going, staying in business, working hard. I already know this, and every operator on this call has been working harder than they've ever worked before. They've been getting more creative than they've ever gotten before to keep their guests safe, to keep their employees safe, and just know that everybody from the manufacturing distribution side is doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, and I guess, a comment that I'll make, and it's not specific to any of the topics that we necessarily talked about today, but from food service operations, food service operations is really tough. I mean, that's a really tough business to manage in normal times. And obviously, I can only imagine how much more challenging it's become over the last year, and maybe what the food service operators are dealing with today. While a lot of the most recent questions were maybe more specific to operators and distributors, anything that was mentioned related to that relationship, I would echo that it's the same type of relationship between end customers and manufacturers, or even distributors and manufacturers. So I know John Cole mentioned a few things in there about collaboration, and he mentioned timely communication. I would echo that as well, and proactive communication. That's probably something that became more clear to me as we've kind of navigated through this recovery piece. Being more proactive in the communication, and that really should go both ways. Help eliminate any of the confusion, and just essentially align on a path forward. I guess those are just maybe some of my closing thoughts as I think about this topic in general.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much. Thank you everyone out there that was listening today. If you have questions further for this panel, please feel free to reach out to us. We can put you in contact with them. We know that this is not a simple topic that anyone has been through before, so we are all in this together. Not to get into a song, but so if you want any more information or you need a partner, I have a QR code up on the screen. Feel free to scan that, reach out to the Buyer's Edge platform. We'll kind of help you navigate some of the supply chain issues that you might be going through. And till then, I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and good luck out there getting those yogurt containers. All right. Thank you guys very much. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.